In this video, I'm going to be philosophizing on deprivation motivations associated with specific mind-brain connections that are influencing various areas of the limbic area regarding the amygdala, hippocampus, and insula. And the insula tends to be very meaningful for understanding deprivation motivations, as the insula is processing pain associated with the self and also negative self-perceptions and direct perceptions associated with the self and meaning in life regarding direct and indirect connections to the self that's associated with specific lack of meaning in affect. So not meaning in affect, but lack of meaning in affect. And the connections to the hippocampus is important for developing meaning in affect in association with the prefrontal cortex. That allowances for us to connect semantic processes and behaviors to not just self-conducted learning, but also memory of our sentiment within various meaningful emotion experiences. And this allows us to cultivate meaning and affect that's well-defined and does not hold the vagueness as to remain vague that deprives the self of meaningfulness, and which often is more likely to invoke negativities that an individual lashes out on existence. And it's through the cultivation of the meaning in affect an individual can, as a compass, self-conduct the perception, action, and behavior towards more healthy psychological functioning endeavors, that one can, on each stepping stone of meaning, develop meaningful living and bring the ego into balance. And bringing the ego into balance is the incremental gratifications of ego that cultivate positive, meaningful emotions, in which we'll see meaningfully transformed areas of the limbic areas of the brain associated with the hippocampus, amygdala, and insula connected to the prefrontal cortex, where the amygdala is not just responsible for processing negative emotions, it's also very, very meaningful for positive, meaningful emotions and developing positive, meaningful emotions. Often, any region of the brain that has a dedicated function that has one extreme is also responsible for the other extreme. So if you see increased activity in that region associated with increased metabolic function, then the opposite tends to also be true. So if there's decreased activity, an individual tends to engage meaningfully in the opposite positive or negative direction of perception, action, and or behavior. So if more activity to the prefrontal cortex increases our capacity to engage higher order cognitions and complexity, to be able to engage the simplifications of meaning from complexity and create easier access to knowledge, then the decrease in activity in the prefrontal cortex allowances for less complex processing and often rest. It's often associated with rest and relaxation and less effortful, meaningful perception, action, and or behavior. Not engaging the prefrontal cortex concerns the individual who is declining in various direct perception multifunctionalities associated with perspective taking and capacity to empathize and to develop meaningful meaning interpretations that are complex enough to be able to maintenance and engage meaningfully the relevant perception, action, and or behavior within and across various situations, and that increases deprivation motivations, not as a result of one's own efforts per se, some else lack of effort. And it's this lack of effort that cannot maintenance perception, action, and behavior in any meaningful regard that concerns the decline, the meaningful decline in specific functions, as we have to engage in intermissions of specific perception, action, and behavior to maintenance and therefore engage the sustainability of those perception, action, and or behavior in association with specific mind-brain connections that are expanders of mind-body connections. Self connects through self-conducted expanders of mind-body connections. That's all I want to say for this video. Hope you have an awesome developing this episode.